extremely happy to introduce our speaker today, Anju Karanji. She is a front-end engineer who loves bringing interfaces to life with React and TypeScript. She has built production-ready applications at Amazon and executive homes, focusing on high-performance UIs, real-time collaboration, and clean, intuitive design. Anju also enjoys experimenting with creative ideas, including SayBuild, her AI-powered, voice-driven page builder, and she writes technical blogs to share what she learns along the way. She's passionate about thoughtful user experiences, modern front-end architecture, and helping new developers grow. We are super excited to have you with us today, Anju. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Violina. I'll quickly share my screen. You're all able to see it, right?
We do.
I'm going to start the slideshow quickly. So thank you for having me. And today we're going to talk about the React 19.2 updates. Uh, Before I begin, I will let you know that React is a little has the ability to make you feel like a beginner, even though you might have worked with it for years. Sometimes it can make you feel like a beginner, and so we'll learn about the new 19.2 updates, uh, with patience and with a little bit of together. Um, and and a little bit of maybe existential dread. So we'll do it patiently with low pressure. Uh, to begin with, we all know React has been around for close to 12 to 13 years. And you could say it's almost like a teenager, compared in the framework years. You could say it's like a teenager and ready to go to therapy and things like that. Uh, and frankly, the React framework, the React library has done the work. It has done soul searching and become better. It's more thoughtful now. It's more, it has listened to our grumblings and our issues for long, and it has become more self-aware. The React 19.2 updates are not like earth-shattering. They are not like mind-blowing, but it's a more thoughtful release. It's a release that is geared towards making the developer experience much better. Uh, to be fair, React has had a massive fan following. It's got a really loyal fan base with developers adopting it early on because it made UI updates easy. We all love it. Uh, but it has got its fair share of criticism, and frankly, they're quite valid. We've all had issues with the side effects from the use effects, and we've had issues with memoization hell, trying to memorize at every layer, every abstraction layer. On top of that, we've had the dev tools are great, but the performance tab needs a little more UX improvement, and the debugging can sometimes take a lot, especially in a complicated prod app. It takes a lot. So I feel like the React team has listened to us, and has tried to address all our complaints that we've been raising for a couple of years. So this is a more like a release that is more geared towards making developer experience much better. Um, and before begin, React now is no longer associated only with Meta. It's a new React Foundation has been set up. So the stewardship of React is taken over by the React Foundation, and it is maintained by four couple of companies. Amazon, Meta, Vercel, and a few others. So basically, now we have better funding, and it's a little more stable. And frankly, if you are working in the React ecosystem, that means better job security, more stability in the React world. If you have React on your resume, this kind of is more stable. Um, so the one of the big elephants in the room, so to say, is the React compiler. Uh, React compiler is more stable now. They had released an experimental version, and now React has come out with the stable version, which is honestly really great. It's a massive win. Some people on the internet grumble. You might have seen some videos on YouTube and the blogs and the tweets about React compiler. Some might complain that it tacks on a few seconds during build time, but it is still worth it considering it is going to reduce close to like 40 hours of your life per year that you would normally spend in memoizing. uh, uh, so this is a massive win. I actually tried it on a personal project with Next.js, and I used React compiler. I think I literally saved like 5 hours of memoization that I would have had to do manually on my own. So I think it's a massive win. It's a great update. Um, in case you're using it on the prod app, I will say I never said this, get this presentation, but since it is getting recorded, I'm I'm just uh, trying to sound funny, but honestly, it is a great win because it is used in Facebook, it is used in Instagram, it is used in Threads, I believe. So React Compiler, big win. Um, uh, and So basically, the React 19.2 is uh, again addressing things that we have complained about for years, and some of the components that some of the releases, some of the features are really awesome. And the first one that I think was the that spoke to me the most, that I think you can use every day in your production app, is called the activity component. Uh, I'll give you a little context about activity component. I worked at my last job and we had this React app and we had an inbuilt tab system. So theoretically, you could have infinite number of tabs, and each tab had multiple panels, and there was a navigation state. So we had to store the nav state. We had to store the scroll position, the cursor position, what option was chosen, and which panels were open, which were closed, and it was all stored in local storage. So, as you can imagine, maintaining that was a mess. So it was basically like held together with duct tape and tears and prayers of developers on the team. Uh, Activity component, if it had existed back then, I think it would have made all our lives much easier and happier. Uh, Quickly show you the code. So previously how you would render is you based on a boolean, you render the component. But now when you wrap it in an activity bar, you get a mode, a prop, and then you set the visible and the hidden. uh, and So when I toggle sidebar, I see the component sidebar and I say do something, and I close the sidebar and I click it again. It saves state. Before it would conditionally rendering it would unmount the component, and then you make it visible again, so it mounts the component again. So the mount and the unmount is that time is saved, and it saves state and its use effects and its functions and context API values, everything intact. So when you toggle sidebar, it loads with all its state intact. So the users get a very seamless UI, user experience. And it is a very smooth and it's very convenient to use. I think this is a big win. I'm so it's basically like you have a friend in the cafeteria. You're in high school and and there is this popular kid, and the kid says, "I'm going to reserve a seat for you when you're done getting your food." And the nerdy high schooler that is me will be like super happy, yay! So activity component, big win. The next one that I wanna talk about is use effect event. Use effect events are uh, sorry, if interrupt me if you have any question or add it on the chat, and I will answer if you have any doubts about it. Uh, Use effect event is like you must have all had this exhaustive depths rule with the linter where everybody's frustrated. Um, to be more clear, let me give you a picture of what I mean. You have a use effect and you're doing something important there. Like for instance, you are subscribing to something, or making an important API call, or say setting up a WebSocket connection, very important and serious. But you also want to use the theme value you get from the context API. And you want to use the theme in your use effect because you want to add some styles and make it pretty, because you're not a monster. You want it to be all pretty and gussied up. But if the ESLinter is going to scream at you, you got to add the theme to your dependency array. But you also know if you add the theme to your dependency array, immediately it's going to render every time the theme changes. So the entire connection is reset every time, which is not what we want. So what we do is we add the ESLinter directive comment that says disable next line, do not parse it. Um, and that is not ideal. So we tell ourselves we'll come back and fix it soon. But there's another sprint, and then you have to take care of another feature, and you know how the story goes. Use effect event solves exactly that problem. This has been a big problem for a really long time. I can show you the use effect quickly. So here I have the use effect, and create connection is setting up a WebSocket connection. This is a simulation. This is not happening here. But I want to use the theme, which I get from the use theme context API. But if I add it directly in my use effect, I'll have to add it to my dependency array, which is not what I want. So I wrap it in the use effect event hook, and I don't have to add it to my dependency array when I do that. So if you see my code here, right now it should change only when the room ID changes. And I change my theme to, right now it is light mode. I change it to dark mode. It does not rerun the use effect. It only, because we have then separated out the parts that we don't want to affect the component. We've separated our code that we don't want to be reactive and wrapped it in a use effect event hook. So this again, I think is a wonderful feature that you can use like almost immediately. So this is a big win in my opinion. Um, and the next one is it's called, I want to talk to you about is performance tracks. So performance tracks, it's on the dev tools now, and they've added two new tracks called scheduler and component, and both are really great. I'll give you a quick demo of it. So I have this, I'll show you the code quickly. In here, I have a button called Show Search. On click of that button, I have suspense boundaries and I render names list. Names list component makes a fetch API call through load names. And once the names are, and once the fetch API finishes, I display the items in the results list component. I also have a search input, and I after the and I enter a few keystrokes or a few characters, and my callback function handle change is called, and that is going to prioritize my state updates. And then I use the use transition hook, and inside it, I simulate some expensive work, but I also filter. So I'm going to run that. You can see, right? Uh, I'm going to start the recording, and I click on show search, and I say some fallback loading names. And here I say Everett. Then I'm going to stop my recording. DevTools is doing its thing, loading it. Bear with me. The two new tracks under the performance tab is the scheduler and the components. So scheduler track shows the way how React thinks inside, like how it thinks in how it prioritizes its tasks, how it prioritizes when what comes first, what comes second, what's the highest priority, what's blocking update, what's not. So anything blocking update is like you click events, user input, basically things that take the highest, that these are the highest priority. So they come under the blocking updates. And the transition is anything that is interruptible work that is inside the use transition hook will be under the transition lane. Suspense is a suspense boundary, and idle. And components will give us a sort of like a flame graph of that kind of tells you how much each component, how much time it took, and that helps you figure out where the problem lies, which is the problem child, which component is the source of problem. For instance, in my code, I clicked on search, show search, that was a click event. So that was a blocking update, the highest priority update. And then I make a fetch API call. The fetch API call, the moment the promise got resolved, it becomes a blocking update. It again becomes the highest priority. And then the render. And then these are all the keystrokes. Every time I entered EVERE is something I entered. So each keystroke is a blocking update. It's of highest priority. So no matter what is happening, that will be prioritized more. Transition lane has see it's update block. It's interruptible work. It does the filtering in the use transition hook. So for the moment it starts filtering and there is a higher priority task like a user input, the update is blocked and the higher priority work is taken care of first, and then for each keystroke, it starts to filter and it finishes only after the blocking update is done doing its thing. Suspense is until about the promise is resolved between 4,000 to 5,000 milliseconds. The fallback is displayed that says loading names. And once the API call is done, the names list component with all the names is shown. So that's the render. and then commit, and then paint is performed, and then the rest of the effects are run. Idle, it is hard to show because these tasks, React only does when it is completely free. Yeah, and it's like logging and analytics, but that is hard to capture in my demo because my demo was a lot of user interaction heavy. But this happens only when React is completely idle. Component is like it shows the components and how much time each component took. So for instance, as you can see, my names list, that is the component that had that displayed my the list of names, my search input and the result input, that took the maximum amount of time, total time of 306 milliseconds, 306.4 milliseconds. And reconnect means just the time between the suspense boundary shows the fallback, and then it shows the real component that is for reconnect. That also took up a lot of time. Total time is 295.4 milliseconds. Self time for its own self is just like 63. In all, it took 295. And again, inside the reconnect part, names list took up the maximum amount of time, just like here. Names list is the biggest mm, resource that takes up the most amount of time. In that, it is a results list that took up the most amount of time. And in that, it is a name item. So we can see that this is the first render when the first list is rendered. Basically, the name item took up the most amount of time. So we can see that the mapping through the array takes up the most amount of time. So we could probably use react.memo to reduce the amount of time it takes to render the array. So basically, performance tracks try and help us figure out where we're losing time to improve the performance of our uh, React app. The next one that I want to talk to you about is it's called cast signal. This one is a little niche because it can be used only with the React server components. Right now, if you use it with client-only React apps, it is going to return null, so it is not really useful. Cache signal is used in conjunction with cache API. Uh, when the React has completed its render, or it aborts the render for any reason, say the user moved away or any other reason, and you're doing some expensive work, React will send an abort signal using through the cache signal, and you can capture that signal, the abort signal, and you can use it to stop any expensive work that you are doing. Basically, you this is a way to prevent wasted work. uh, these days React is really fast, but in case you want to prevent wasted work, or you want to do some garbage collection or some cleanup work or something, you can catch the abort signal that is sent through the cache signal, and you can prevent wasted work. I can show you quickly in my here I'm doing a fetch data, and I'm going to and in here I use the cache API, and I catch the signal with cache signal, and I listen for abort. If there is an abort, then I just show these console.logs. So what is happening is here I run, oh no, it's completed. And then before it could load, I'll show you again. Before it can load fully, I click on the home button here. So the render has been aborted because it did not complete its render. So I catch that in my fetch data, and I can see it is showing multiple times because the strict mode and the HMR, the hot module reload, that's why it is showing it, displaying it 3 times. But in prod it will show it only once. But if it completes fully, then this does not show. But since I every time I try to l- load it, and before it goes, I abort the render. My abort signal is caught and it shows up in my terminal. I don't know how useful it is, but if you're doing some important, extensively heavy work and you don't want to go through with it, you can catch the signal and stop wasted work. So that can be useful, but only again in RSCs and not right now with the client only React apps. The next one I want to talk to you about is partial pre-rendering. This is a way for React to separate your code into static and dynamic parts. It is going to, the moment a request hits, it is going to immediately send a static shell, things that do not change, like the navigation or the header or things that you know are not going to be there does not need to be personalized. But things that need to be personalized, you're going to send it later, progressively send it, dynamic parts. This is done just so you can have better CEO and FCP, LCP. So this is partial pre-rendering because it is not you don't it is not fully server send rendering, but it's like partial. You send in the static parts right at the beginning, and then you progressively send the dynamic parts to personalize it, and then hydrate it with the JavaScript. I'll show you the code quickly, then it'll become clearer. So I have a couple of things. I have some static information, and then that is all in products. I have some dynamic information that is in profile and recommendation. And since I'm using Next.js, it will figure out on its own which is the static and the dynamic part. And then I can help Next.js figure out which is the dynamic part based on the suspense boundary. And using async operations, it figures out which is the static part, which is the dynamic part. You just have to uh, the it is right now in the experimental stage. You just have to set it as true. As long as you make it true, this will automatically be this will automatically happen, will be enabled. I'll quickly show you localhost. This is the static part, this is the dynamic part, this is my static part. This does not need to change because the products don't change and the price is constant. And then the dynamic parts load because there's a little delay. So if I open the network tab, and then I refresh it again, and I take the HTML that loads, because it has not been updated yet. The initial HTML that loads will have my static parts. My static part is products. in my products, I show products. So this will be products is already sent immediately because it is a static part. But the dynamic part, which is, say, your profile, which is here, which is the dynamic part. And if I try to search for it, it is 0. The count is 0. Or the recommended, again, this is also a dynamic part. If I try to search for recommended, again, you get the search count 0 because it is streamed in later. So it will in the beginning send the static shell immediately, and so the user sees the HTML like immediately, and so show some skeleton or loading screens, and then you send the dynamic content. Uh, so that's partial pre-rendering. The next one that I want to talk to you about is patching suspense boundaries. This is more a backend thing. If you have multiple suspense boundaries and they all resolve at around the same time, within a short time of each other, then React is going to bundle them all together and send it in one single network call. This is done so that there is better performance and there is less back and forth. There's less round trip for the network call. Instead of making multiple network calls, it is going to use a single network call and batch it. In the UI, it is not. It's not very. It is not very evident. It's hard to notice that little thing, but performance-wise, and it helps in reducing the network calls and get better performance out of it. So this is one of the other good things that they released. And the next one is SSR web stream support for Node. This is again geared towards developer experience. Back then, we had to use render to readable stream for Edge implementations and render to pipeable stream for Node.js implementation. So we had to write code separately based on what platform it is going to be run on. And so to make our lives a little easier, uh, render to readable stream can be used now for Node and Dino and Bun, I think, and it all edge implementation. So it's been it can be used for Node as well right now. That's the uh, positive thing with this upgrade. Honorable mentions. Um, ESLint plugin has been updated. Now we have better hook dependency detection and stricter purity checks, better error messages, and the use ID prefix. I haven't personally used it, but when you want to use multiple repeat a certain form with a ID, and if you have a user generate, it will cause conflict. So you want to keep the IDs so there is no conflict, especially when you're going to use it with accessibility. Earlier, we used to use lowercase r as prefix, but now it's been upgraded to uppercase r. So that's another. These are the updates that's released by React 19.2. If you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for listening to me. And hopefully you can use some of these in your prod, application right now. Again, thanks for listening to me and having me over. This is my LinkedIn. Connect with me. And thanks again.
Amazing representation of the new features in React Anju. Thank you for providing the new features in such easy to understand way. I think we all learned a lot. What is your favorite new API?
The new update, I love the activity because I remember I was part of that. The like I was supposed to keep it all in local storage and maintain it. I don't know, I was so frustrated because it just became a mess. I feel like activity component, if you want a safe state and not have to maintain it, that's a great. And again, a user effect has been a big problem for many people, right? So the side effect, we don't know how many times it re-renders, why it is re-rendering. That I mean, it's a lot, and you have to memorize it. I think the this update, the React 19.2, has it's a good one. It's geared to us developers, I feel. So,
If you have
oh,
any
I didn't
questions,
see there are a couple of questions, I think, no? Oh, thank you. Thanks, Sophia. Thanks, Lauren. Oh, thank you so much. This makes me so happy.
you're amazing and we all learned a lot today.
I'm really happy, you know. Some things were, yeah. I feel like the things that are both common for CSR and SSR, like RSCs and all that, like I said, activity and all that, those are really useful. Even you can start using it today. Again, thank you so much for having me over and please connect with me on LinkedIn.